A teacher notices something odd about a quiet boy in class, then he says 3 words. The spiral-bound notebook made its first appearance on a Tuesday. Daniel Rowan noticed it immediately, partly because it was the only splash of color in Noah Green's otherwise gray existence. The blue cover, worn at the edges and plastered with faded stickers, stood out against the boy's muted clothing and perpetually lowered gaze. "Good morning, Noah," Mr. Rowan said with practiced warmth as the 10-year-old slipped into the classroom 5 minutes before the bell. Just like yesterday. And the day before. Noah didn't respond. Clutching the notebook to his chest like armor, he made his way to the farthest desk in the back corner, the one partially hidden by the bookshelf. His sanctuary? Mr. Rowan had been teaching 5th grade at Pinewood Elementary for 12 years. Long enough to recognize the invisible boundaries certain children built around themselves. Noah Green had constructed walls higher and thicker than most. 3 weeks into the school year, and the boy hadn't voluntarily spoken a single word. Not to teachers. Not to classmates. Not even during recess, when he would sit alone under the oak tree, writing furiously in that mysterious notebook. "He's still adjusting," Principal Warner had said when Daniel raised concerns during their weekly meeting. "His family moved here suddenly over the summer. Give him time." But there was adjusting, and then there was whatever Noah was doing, existing in their world while living entirely in his own. When the classroom filled with the chaotic energy of 24 children, Mr. Rowan began the morning routine. Attendance. Pledge. Morning message. Through it all, Noah sat perfectly still, his only movement the occasional tightening of his grip on the notebook whenever someone walked too close to his desk. "Today we're starting our personal narrative project," Mr. Rowan announced, writing my story across the whiteboard in bold letters. "Everyone has experiences worth sharing. Even the ordinary days can become extraordinary stories with the right details." He scanned the room, noting the mixture of excitement and dread on young faces. Noah's expression remained unchanged, a carefully maintained blank canvas. "Before we write our own stories, let's brainstorm what makes a story worth telling." Mr. Rowan moved among the desks, distributing colorful index cards. "Write one thing that makes a story interesting to you." 23 hands reached for markers. Noah stared at the blank card on his desk as if it might bite. Later, as students shared their ideas. "Adventure. Funny parts. Superheroes." Mr. Rowan noticed Noah had finally picked up his pencil. But he wasn't writing on the index card. The blue notebook lay open, shielded by his hunched shoulders as his pencil moved across the page in quick, secretive strokes. During lunch, while supervising the cafeteria, Mr. Rowan observed Noah sitting alone at the end of a table. The notebook was propped against his milk carton as he alternated between taking small bites of his sandwich and writing. When a group of laughing boys sat down nearby, Noah gathered his things and moved to an empty table, never once looking up. The notebook went everywhere. To the bathroom, waiting outside the stall. To the library, balanced on his knees as he pretended to choose a book. To the playground, clutched tightly even as he climbed the ladder to the slide with one hand. By Thursday, Daniel's professional curiosity had evolved into genuine concern. After the final bell, he called the school counselor. "I've never seen a child so attached to an object," he told Sarah Carter as they sat in her small office. "It's like he's afraid it will disappear if he lets go." Sarah leafed through Noah's thin file. "Not much here. Transferred from Westlake Elementary. Average grades. No disciplinary issues or special accommodations noted. That's just it. There's nothing remarkable in his record, but everything about his behavior suggests something's wrong. He guards that notebook like it contains state secrets." Sarah closed the file. "Some children use objects as emotional anchors during periods of stress. Could be a comfort item. This doesn't feel like comfort," Daniel insisted. "It feels like protection. Or preservation. Of what? That's what worries me." The next day, Mr. Rowan tried a different approach. During quiet reading time, he casually placed a worn leather journal on Noah's desk. "This was my notebook when I was about your age," he said softly, not expecting a response. I wrote stories about alien worlds and secret doorways. Places where I felt I belonged when the real world seemed too complicated. For the briefest moment, Noah's eyes flickered upward, the first direct eye contact he'd made since arriving at Pinewood. Then, just as quickly, the shield came back up. But something had shifted. A hairline crack in the wall. On Monday morning, Noah arrived clutching not just his blue notebook, but also a folded piece of paper. When the classroom emptied for music class, Mr. Rowan found it on his desk, a carefully drawn comic strip showing a small figure writing in a book while shadowy shapes loomed in the background. No words. No explanation. But unmistakably a message. The first communication. The first clue. And in the corner of the paper, almost too faint to notice, 3 small words that sent a chill down Daniel Rowan's spine. She's still listening. Rain tapped against the classroom windows like impatient fingers. The weatherman had predicted sunshine, but gray clouds had rolled in by mid-morning, matching the somber mood that seemed to follow Noah Green wherever he went. Mr. Rowan glanced at the clock. 10 minutes until lunch, and he still hadn't managed to engage Noah in today's lesson. The boy sat hunched over his desk, the ever-present blue notebook positioned at a careful angle to prevent anyone from seeing its contents. "Before we break for lunch," Mr. Rowan announced, "I'd like to introduce our next project." He unveiled a colorful poster board with the words, "Important people in our lives," written in bold letters. "We'll be creating memory books about people who matter to us. Family members, friends, neighbors, anyone who has made a difference in your life." The classroom buzzed with excited chatter as students began listing possibilities. Noah's pencil froze mid-stroke. His eyes, usually downcast, lifted briefly to the poster board. "This will be a 2-week project," Mr. Rowan continued, watching Noah's reaction closely. "You'll write descriptions, draw pictures, and share memories about your special person. On Friday next week, those who wish to can present their books to the class." When the lunch bell rang, the students filed out noisily, all except Noah, who remained rooted to his chair, staring at the blank project template Mr. Rowan had distributed. "Noah?" Mr. Rowan approached carefully. "Would you like to eat in here today? It's fine if you'd prefer some quiet." The boy didn't respond, but he didn't flee either. Progress of sorts. Mr. Rowan busied himself arranging books on a shelf, giving Noah space while remaining present. After several minutes, he heard the soft scratch of pencil on paper. A sideways glance confirmed Noah was working not in his sacred notebook, but on the project template. Lunch period ended too soon. As students trickled back into the classroom, Noah quickly slid his work into his desk. But Mr. Rowan had seen enough to notice that the boy had filled an entire page with his small, careful handwriting. More than he'd written for any previous assignment. Over the next few days, Mr. Rowan observed a subtle shift in Noah's behavior. During project work time, the boy would alternate between writing in his notebook and working on his memory book. His posture remained defensive, but his eyes occasionally darted toward the teacher, almost as if seeking approval. On Wednesday, a breakthrough occurred. As Mr. Rowan demonstrated how to create a decorative border for their memory books, Noah raised his hand, so slightly that most of the class missed it. "Yes, Noah?" Mr. Rowan kept his voice casual, though his heart hammered with anticipation. "Can we?" The boy's voice was hoarse from disuse, barely audible. "Can we use photos?" 24 heads swiveled in surprise. Noah Green had spoken. "Absolutely," Mr. Rowan replied, restraining his excitement. "Photos would be perfect for this project." Noah nodded once, then retreated back into silence. But something had changed. A door, previously locked, had been cracked open just enough to let in a sliver of light. The following afternoon, heavy rain kept the children inside for recess. While most students played board games or read in small groups, Noah remained at his desk, working with unusual intensity on his memory book. When the bell signaled the end of recess, he startled, looking up to find the classroom emptying for art class. "Coming, Noah?" Mr. Rowan asked gently. The boy gathered his things, but in his haste, dropped several papers. Mr. Rowan bent to help collect them, noticing they were covered with carefully rendered drawings: a girl with long braids, a tree house, 2 figures holding hands. "These are beautiful," he said, returning them to Noah. "You're quite the artist." For the first time, Noah's face showed something other than blank reservation. A shadow of pride flickered across his features before disappearing behind his usual mask. Friday arrived with unexpected sunshine. As students packed up for the weekend, Mr. Rowan noticed Noah lingering behind, seemingly absorbed in adding final touches to his memory book while the classroom emptied around him. "You've worked very hard on this project," Mr. Rowan said, approaching Noah's desk after the last student departed. "Would you like to tell me about the person in your book?" He expected the boy to shake his head or simply leave. Instead, Noah carefully opened his project, revealing pages filled with intricate drawings and dense text. The first page showed a girl, perhaps 12 or 13, with braided hair and a wide smile. The name, Ella, was written in decorative letters beneath the portrait. "Is this someone in your family?" Mr. Rowan asked, careful to keep his tone conversational. Noah's fingers traced the drawing. Minutes passed in silence. Just as Mr. Rowan was about to give up, the boy spoke, his voice so quiet it was almost lost in the afternoon stillness. "I write to her every day." His eyes flickered toward the blue notebook. Mr. Rowan's heart skipped. "In your notebook?" Noah nodded slowly. "That's a lovely way to remember someone," Mr. Rowan said, treading carefully. "Is she far away?" The boy's face clouded. His fingers curled protectively around the edge of the notebook. "They say she is." "They?" "Mom and Dad." Noah's breathing quickened slightly. "They said she went to live with Aunt Maureen. But Aunt Maureen came for Christmas, and Ella wasn't with her. When I asked, everyone got quiet." Mr. Rowan sat down in a nearby chair, bringing himself to Noah's eye level. "That must have been confusing for you." Noah's eyes, when they finally met his teacher's, held a depth of sadness no 10-year-old should possess. "I keep writing because—" he struggled, searching for words. "Because she always read my stories before. I think maybe she still does." "Your stories?" Mr. Rowan glanced at the notebook. Noah hesitated, then slid the blue notebook forward an inch, not offering it, exactly, but no longer guarding it quite so fiercely. "May I ask who you're writing to in your notebook, Noah?" Mr. Rowan asked, his voice gentle but direct. The boy stared at his desk, the afternoon light casting shadows across his face. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said the 3 words that would change everything. "It's for her." The simple phrase hung in the air between them, not just an answer, but a plea and a confession wrapped into one. Mr. Rowan nodded, understanding that he had just been entrusted with something precious and fragile. "Thank you for telling me, Noah." Outside, the buses were loading, horns honking their final warnings. Noah gathered his things, including his memory book, but for the first time, he left the blue notebook on his desk, a silent invitation or perhaps a test. After Noah departed, Mr. Rowan sat alone in the quiet classroom, staring at the notebook but not touching it. Those 3 words echoed in his mind, raising questions that twisted his stomach into knots. It's for her. But who was she really? And where was Ella Green? The notebook sat untouched on Mr. Rowan's desk all weekend. He brought it home Friday evening, locked in his briefcase like something radioactive, too dangerous to leave in an empty classroom yet too important to ignore. Now, Sunday evening, it waited. Judging him. Daniel Rowan had spent his weekend researching. School records showed that Ella Green had been enrolled at Pinewood briefly last year, 7 weeks to be exact, before her status changed abruptly to withdrawn. No reason given. No forwarding school indicated. His call to Ms. Carter had yielded little more information. "The Green family is private," she'd said, choosing her words carefully. "When they enrolled Noah this year, Mrs. Green was clear that questions about their older child were unwelcome." "Did anyone follow up when Ella was withdrawn?" Daniel had pressed. A pause. "The administration sent the standard paperwork. It came back signed, with family relocation checked." Given the timing, Mid-year during a pandemic, no one questioned it. But someone should have questioned it, Daniel thought now, eyeing the notebook. Someone should have noticed. With a deep breath, he opened it. The first page contained a single sentence. Dear Ella, Dad took your pictures down yesterday. Daniel turned the page. Each entry was dated, formatted like letters, all addressed to Ella. Some were mundane, descriptions of school days, complaints about cafeteria food. Others raised the hair on his arms. March 4th, Mom threw out your sweater. She said it was taking up space, but I know she just didn't want to see it anymore. I rescued it from the trash when she wasn't looking. It's in my bottom drawer now. March 20th, they had another fight about you last night. Mom kept saying we agreed never to discuss this, but Dad kept yelling that he couldn't live with himself. I put on my headphones, but I could still hear them. April 15th, I asked Aunt Maureen about you on the phone. She got really quiet, then said she had to go. Now Mom says I'm not allowed to talk to Aunt Maureen anymore. The entries grew more concerning as they continued. May 2nd, I'm supposed to tell people you went to live with relatives if they ask. But that's not true, is it? I know it's not. I remember the night of the storm. I remember the shed door. May 17th, Dad threw away his special medicine. The pills that make him sleepy. Mom found the empty bottles and they had another fight. She kept saying he needs to keep it together and stick to the story. The most recent entry, dated just last week, sent a chill through Daniel's body. I found your bracelet. The one with the butterfly charm. It was buried under the oak tree where we used to play. Why would it be there? I'm keeping it safe. I didn't tell them. Daniel closed the notebook, his hands trembling slightly. The picture forming in his mind was disturbing. Not the story of a girl who'd gone to live with relatives. Not even the story of a runaway. Something far worse. Monday morning, he arrived at school early, stopping by Ms. Carter's office before classes began. I need your help, he said, placing the notebook on her desk. And we may need to contact authorities. They spent the next hour reading through the entries together, both growing paler with each page. This isn't proof of anything, Ms. Carter cautioned, though her voice lacked conviction. Children Noah's age often mix reality with imagination, especially when processing loss. Loss, Daniel repeated. That's the word, isn't it? Noah hasn't just been separated from his sister. He's grieving her. But grieving what exactly? We don't know what happened to Ella. I think Noah might know more than he realizes. Daniel tapped the most concerning entries. These references to the storm, the shed, the buried bracelet, they're too specific to be imagination. Ms. Carter sighed, her professional reserve cracking. I'll contact Detective Marks. He handled a similar case last year. But we need to be extremely careful how we proceed. If we're wrong. And if we're right? Daniel challenged. What if Ella Green isn't living with relatives at all? The morning proceeded with excruciating normalcy. Noah arrived quiet as ever, sliding into his seat without looking up. When he realized his notebook wasn't where he'd left it, panic flashed across his face. Daniel approached quietly. I have it, he whispered. It's safe. Can we talk about it after school? Noah's eyes, wide with fear, eventually gave way to a slight nod. The hours crawled by. When the final bell rang, Noah remained seated as his classmates filtered out. Mr. Rowan closed the classroom door and pulled a chair alongside the boy's desk. Noah, he began gently, placing the notebook between them. I read what you wrote. About Ella. The boy's shoulders hunched defensively. I'm not angry, Daniel continued. I'm worried. I think you're worried too. Silence stretched between them. Then, almost imperceptibly, Noah nodded. Can you tell me about the night of the storm? The one you mentioned here? Daniel pointed to the May 2nd entry. Noah's hands began to tremble. I'm not supposed to talk about it. I know. But sometimes the things we're not supposed to talk about are exactly the things we need to share. Tears welled in Noah's eyes. They'll be mad. They said if I ever told anyone, bad things would happen. Daniel felt cold anger rising in his chest, but kept his voice steady. Noah, what happened that night isn't your fault. Nothing that happened to Ella is your fault. The boy looked up, startled. How did you know something happened to her? Because you've been trying to tell someone for months, Daniel said, tapping the notebook. In your own way. Noah's lower lip quivered. She screamed during the thunder. No one could hear except me. I saw Dad carrying her to the shed. She wasn't moving right. As the boy's words tumbled out, either noticed Detective Jalen Marks quietly entering the room, his presence announced only by Ms. Carter's gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. Noah, the detective said softly, we need to hear about the bracelet. Detective Jalen Marks had investigated over 200 cases involving children during his 15-year career. He developed a sixth sense for distinguishing between imagination and truth, a gift both blessing and curse. As Noah Green described the butterfly bracelet, Marks recognized the ring of authenticity that no coach testimony could mimic. It was silver, Noah said, his voice growing stronger with each detail. With little purple stones on the butterfly wings. Dad gave it to her for her 12th birthday before. Before what, Noah? Marks asked, his tone gentle yet firm. Before he got sick. In his mind, Mom says. Noah's eyes darted nervously to the classroom window, as if expecting to see his parents watching. After that, he started forgetting things. Getting angry. That's when the bad things began. Ms. Carter looked stricken. There was nothing in his records about mental health issues. Mom says we don't tell people our private business. Noah explained with the rehearsed precision of a child repeating an adult's words. Marks made a note, then refocused. Tell me about finding the bracelet, Noah. It was after a big rain last month. The mud by the old oak tree washed away, and I saw something shiny. Noah sketched a quick diagram in his notebook, a backyard layout showing the house, a tree, and a small structure separate from the main building. I dug it up and knew it was hers. Mom had said Ella took all her things when she left, but the bracelet was still there. And where is it now? Marks asked. Hidden in my room. Under the loose floorboard near my closet. Noah hesitated, then added, I check on it every night, to make sure it's safe. Sometimes I hear the shed door creaking when I go near there. Like it's warning me. The detective exchanged glances with Mr. Rowan and Ms. Carter. Noah, what happened in the shed? The boy's face went blank, a defense mechanism against unbearable memories. I don't know. I just heard the door lock. Then Mom was crying, and Dad was saying, it was an accident over and over. Marks nodded, careful not to show the growing urgency he felt. You're doing great, Noah. Really brave. Would it be okay if I visit your house tomorrow? To look at this bracelet? Fear flashed across Noah's face. They'll know I told. They won't, Marks promised. We'll call it a routine wellness check. Schools do them sometimes, just to make sure everything's okay at home. That evening, Detective Marks obtained an administrative warrant, not enough for a full search, but sufficient to check on a child's welfare following a school report. He arranged for Noah to stay with Ms. Carter after school the next day while he and a colleague visited the Green residence. Mrs. Green answered the door with practiced politeness that didn't reach her eyes. Noah isn't home from school yet, she said, blocking the entrance slightly. Marks flashed his badge. Mrs. Green, I'm conducting a welfare check. Standard procedure when a student shows concerning behavior changes. Mind if we come in? Her smile tightened. Now isn't a good time. My husband isn't well. This will only take a few minutes. Marks insisted, already noting the property layout. The tree from Noah's drawing was visible in the backyard, and beyond it, a weathered garden shed. Mrs. Green reluctantly led them through a house that was almost aggressively ordinary, family photos arranged on walls, none showing Ella, Marks noticed, dishes drying by the sink, a jacket tossed over a chair. Noah's room is upstairs, she said, voice strained. But I'd prefer you wait until my husband returns. He doesn't like strangers in the house. When will he be back? Marks asked casually. Hard to say. His schedule is unpredictable. As they spoke, Marks's partner had wandered to the living room window, which overlooked the backyard. He caught Marks's eye and gave a subtle nod toward the oak tree. "Would you excuse us for a moment, Mrs. Green?" Marks stepped outside with his partner, who murmured, "The ground under that tree's been disturbed recently, and the shed has a new padlock." They circled toward the tree while Mrs. Green watched anxiously from the window. Under the pretense of checking property boundaries, Marks examined the soil around the oak's base. Multiple areas showed signs of digging, some older, one very recent. "Mrs. Green," Marks called, returning to the house. "Would you mind showing us the garden shed?" Her face strained of color. "It's just tools. Nothing interesting. Still, we'd like to see it." "I don't have the key," she said quickly. "My husband keeps it with him." Marks nodded as if accepting this. "I understand. We'll come back when he's home." He handed her his card. "Please have him call me directly." As they walked back to their vehicle, his partner muttered, "She's hiding something." "Get me a proper search warrant," Marks replied. "This went beyond wellness check the moment I saw that lock." The next morning, Mr. Rowan found Noah waiting outside his classroom before school started, trembling with anxiety. "They know," the boy whispered. "Mom kept asking questions about school. If anyone had been asking about Ella. She checked my room last night." Daniel's throat tightened. "Did she find the bracelet?" Noah shook his head. "But she found my notebook was missing. She got really scared, made phone calls. I heard her say they need to clean up before people come back." Daniel placed a steadying hand on Noah's shoulder. "You're safe here. Detective Marks is getting a warrant today." But safety proved relative. When the lunch bell rang, Daniel saw a familiar sedan pull into the school's parking lot. Noah's father stepped out, face set with grim determination, and headed straight for the main entrance. Before he could reach the office, Detective Marks's unmarked car screeched into the lot, blocking his path. In the hours that followed, the search warrant was executed with surgical precision. Under the oak tree, forensic technicians unearthed not just disturbed soil, but fabric fibers, a hair clip, and most damning of all, a second butterfly bracelet, identical to the one Noah had found, but broken, its chain snapped. When they finally opened the shed door, the evidence couldn't be buried anymore. The shed held secrets in layers. The first layer was visible immediately, a small space transformed into a makeshift bedroom. A thin mattress lay in one corner, a battery-powered lamp beside it. A plastic bin contained girls' clothing, jeans, t-shirts, a faded purple hoodie that matched the school photo of Ella Green. "She was living here?" Ms. Carter whispered, standing just outside the crime scene tape with Mr. Rowan while forensic technicians worked. Detective Marks nodded grimly. "For a time, at least. The question is why, and what happened after?" The deeper layers emerged as investigators pulled up floorboards, revealing the shed's disturbing history. Blood evidence, attempts at cleaning, hair samples. Scientific language that translated to a simple, horrifying truth: violence had occurred here. Miles away, in the police station's interview room, Matthew Green sat motionless, his eyes fixed on some middle distance as his wife sobbed beside him. "It was an accident," Lisa Green insisted through tears. "You have to understand Matt's condition. He hasn't been himself since the dementia diagnosis." Detective Marks kept his voice neutral. "Tell me about the night of the storm, Mrs. Green." She twisted a tissue between her fingers. "Ella and Matt had been arguing more. His confusion made him paranoid. He'd accuse her of stealing things, of plotting against him. That night, she threatened to call social services. Said they'd take Noah away. So what happened? Matt, he lost control. Grabbed her. They struggled. She fell, hit her head on the workbench." Lisa's voice became mechanical. "There was so much blood. We thought she had passed." "You thought?" Mark's tone sharpened. Matthew Green spoke for the first time, his voice hollow. "We put her in the shed. To figure out what to do. Lisa said we'd go to prison, lose Noah. We were going to call an ambulance, but then the storm got worse. When we checked later, Lisa continued, she was gone. The shed door was open. We thought she'd woken up, run away. So you never reported her missing? Mark stated. Just told everyone she'd gone to live with relatives. We searched for her, Lisa insisted. For weeks. But there was no sign. We thought maybe she was hiding, afraid to come home. Or she couldn't finish the sentence. Or she died somewhere from her injuries, Marks completed flatly. Yet you still didn't come forward. We'd already covered it up, Matthew said tonelessly. Who would believe it was an accident by then? The timeline pieced together slowly. The parents' argument about what to do. Their decision to hide Ella in the shed temporarily. The storm intensifying, preventing them from taking her to a hospital without questions. Checking later to find her gone. Weeks of searching nearby woods and waterways, finding nothing. Then the gradual construction of a new narrative, one where Ella had simply gone away, not disappeared. But the evidence told a different story, one confirmed when ground-penetrating radar detected an anomaly beneath the shed's concrete foundation. Poured, neighbors reported, shortly after the storm. By evening, the county was riveted by news reports of arrests at the Green home and the grim excavation underway in the backyard. Neighbors stood in clusters at the edge of the police tape, sharing stories of a family that had kept to themselves, a father whose behavior had grown increasingly erratic, a mother who'd seemed perpetually exhausted, and two children rarely seen playing outside. At the police station, Noah sat in the children's interview room, his blue notebook open before him, though he hadn't written in it since the arrests. Mr. Rowan waited with him while social services arranged emergency placement. What happens now? Noah asked, his voice small but steadier than it had been in months. You'll stay with a foster family for a little while, Daniel explained gently. People who will take good care of you while everything gets sorted out. And my parents? Daniel chose his words carefully. They'll need to answer a lot of questions about what happened to Ella. They'll have consequences for their actions. Noah nodded, surprisingly calm. I knew she wasn't coming back. I think I always knew. But I kept writing anyway. That was very brave, Daniel said. Your letters help find the truth. Will they bury her properly? Noah asked suddenly. With flowers and a stone with her name? She'd like that. Yes, Daniel promised, his throat tight. She'll have a proper memorial. Later that evening, Noah was placed with the Hammonds, a veteran foster family who specialized in trauma cases. Mrs. Hammond, a retired school counselor, immediately recognized the importance of the blue notebook, providing Noah with a safe space to continue his writing. As news of the case spread throughout the small community, the details emerged in waves, each more disturbing than the last. Matthew Green's early-onset dementia had gone largely untreated due to financial constraints and his refusal to acknowledge his deterioration. Lisa Green's desperate attempts to hold the family together had led to catastrophic choices, isolating the children, covering up abuse, and ultimately, concealing a death. Most haunting were the forensic findings, evidence that Ella had indeed been alive when placed in the shed, surviving possibly for days before succumbing to her injuries. Blood evidence showed she had moved around the small space, likely confused and in pain, trying to escape. The bracelet found under the tree suggested she might have briefly escaped the shed during the storm, only to be recaptured, or to collapse nearby. The case against the Greens grew as investigators uncovered a history of prior incidents, carefully hidden through frequent moves and withdrawn medical reports. Noah's documented accidents, Ella's sporadic school attendance, neighbors' unanswered concerns. At the preliminary hearing, Matthew sat blank-faced, his deteriorating mind seemingly unable to grasp the gravity of the charges. Lisa, however, what does the judge denied bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the crimes, involuntary manslaughter, child endangerment, obstruction of justice, improper disposal of human remains. The community reeled, asking the inevitable questions: how could this happen? Why didn't anyone notice? Who failed these children? The answers were as complex as they were unsatisfying, a perfect storm of isolation, mental illness, systemic gaps, and the human capacity for self-deception. For Noah, however, the only question that mattered had finally been answered. After months of uncertainty, he now knew Ella had heard him all along. Spring arrived with tentative warmth, coaxing green shoots from soil still remembering winter's chill. 3 months had passed since the discoveries at the greenhouse. 3 months of headlines, court proceedings, and a community struggling to reconcile its failure to protect a child in its midst. In classroom 204 at Pinewood Elementary, change arrived more subtly. Noah Green no longer sat in the back corner. His desk had migrated slowly forward over weeks, now settling in the second row near the window. The blue notebook still accompanied him, but it no longer consumed his days. Mr. Rowan watched Noah's careful progress with a mixture of pride and lingering concern. The transformation wasn't dramatic. Noah wasn't suddenly gregarious or carefree. But small victories accumulated, raising his hand during math, joining a reading group without prompting, making eye contact when spoken to. He's building a new normal. Dr. Levine, Noah's therapist, had explained during their last consultation. Children are remarkably resilient, especially when they have stability and consistency. Your classroom has become his safe harbor. Today was significant. Ella's memorial service would be held this afternoon. The investigation had finally concluded, allowing her remains to be properly laid to rest. Noah had been involved in the planning, insisting on purple flowers to match the stones in her butterfly bracelet. As students worked on their morning assignment, Daniel noticed Noah's pen hovering motionless over his paper. Quietly, he approached the boy's desk. "Everything okay, Noah?" Noah looked up, his eyes clear and direct, a gaze so different from the furtive glances of months past. "I was thinking about what to write in my speech for later." Daniel nodded, understanding the weight of this responsibility. The Hammonds had asked if Noah wanted to say something at the service. To everyone's surprise, he'd agreed immediately. "What would you like to say?" Noah considered this carefully. "I want to tell people who she really was. Not just..." His voice faltered slightly. "Not just what happened to her." "I think that's perfect," Daniel assured him. "Would you like to practice with me during lunch?" A small nod. Progress. After school, Daniel drove to the memorial garden where the service would be held. The Hammonds had arrived early with Noah, who stood solemn and watchful as mourners gathered, teachers from Ella's former school, classmates who barely remembered her, neighbors carrying guilty consciences and belated flowers. Detective Marks nodded respectfully to Daniel as he took a seat. Ms. Carter arrived moments later, her professional composure softened by genuine grief. The service was brief but meaningful. The pastor spoke of interrupted journeys and memories preserved through love. Mrs. Hammond read a poem about butterflies and transformation. Then, with gentle encouragement from his foster mother, Noah approached the small podium. He looked tiny standing there, his shoulders squared with determination as he unfolded a carefully prepared note. The crowd hushed, collective breath held in anticipation of childhood trauma laid bare. But Noah surprised them all. "My sister Ella loved 3 things more than anything else," he began, his voice small but unwavering. "Purple butterflies, chocolate ice cream with rainbow sprinkles, and telling stories." He paused, looking up from his paper to scan the gathered faces. "She made up the best stories. About magical forests and brave kids who found hidden doorways. When I was scared at night, she'd whisper stories until I fell asleep. When kids at school were mean, she'd make up funny stories about them turning into frogs." A ripple of gentle laughter moved through the attendees, unexpected relief breaking the tension. "Ella protected me," Noah continued. "She made sure I ate breakfast when Mom forgot. She helped with my homework. She taught me to write in a notebook so I could make up my own stories someday." He faltered briefly, emotion catching in his throat. Mrs. Hammond moved to stand beside him, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Drawing strength from her presence, Noah continued. "When Ella disappeared, I kept writing to her every day. I thought maybe, somehow, she could still hear my stories. And maybe she could. Because even though she couldn't answer back, writing to her helped me remember who she was. Noah lifted his gaze to the small urn decorated with purple butterflies. The stories people are telling now about what happened to Ella are sad and scary. But they're not the whole story of who my sister was. The real Ella was brave and kind and funny. She loved butterflies because they start as one thing and become something beautiful and free. There wasn't a dry eye in the gathering as Noah finished his tribute. Even Detective Marks, hardened by years of witnessing humanity's darkest moments, wiped surreptitiously at his cheek. After the service, Noah approached Mr. Rowan, holding his blue notebook. For a moment, Daniel thought the boy might hand it to him, a symbolic relinquishing of his burden. Instead, Noah opened it to reveal a fresh page, blank except for a title written in careful letters. New stories. I'm going to keep writing, Noah explained. But not just to Ella anymore. Dr. Levine says I can write stories for everybody now. That sounds wonderful, Daniel replied. Your sister would be proud. Noah considered this, then nodded with the certainty of a child who has navigated darkness and emerged with unexpected wisdom. She always said my stories were good, even when they were sad. As they walked together toward the Hammonds' waiting car, Noah looked back once at the memorial garden. Mr. Rowan? Yes, Noah? I think I'm ready to sit in the front row now. Starting tomorrow. 6 months later, Mr. Rowan's class published their first literary journal, a collection of stories, poems, and drawings created by his students. The dedication page, suggested unanimously by the class, read simply, "For Ella Green, who taught her brother that stories have power, and for Noah Green, who taught us that voices find light again, even after darkness." Beneath these words, a small purple butterfly took flight across the page, drawn by a boy who no longer needed to whisper his truths in secret.